Welcome to the Exploring Potential podcast, where we delve into the realm of unique and novel ideas within organizations. Join us as we uncover the driving force behind innovation and success by engaging in thought-provoking conversations and stories with some of the brightest minds in various fields. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us and welcome to the Exploring Potential podcast. I'm your host, Brett King. Today we're going to cover an exciting topic, which is innovation, and we've got an equally exciting guest to discuss this with. Innovation is simply the process of creating and developing new products, services, or processes with the aim of improving efficiency, effectiveness, or a competitive advantage for our organization. When we innovate, we're basically finding solutions to existing problems or to meet unaddressed needs in the market, often leveraging advancements in technology to do so. This process of modernization brings multiple benefits to organizations, like boosting productivity and efficiencies, creating new business opportunities and revenue streams, creating a competitive advantage in the market, or providing additional value to our customers, which fosters greater loyalty. Innovation doesn't come without risks and uncertainties, though. There can be these unpredictable ROI, exposure in market timing, and culturally speaking, there's the potential resistance from customers or employees. So how do we maintain a practice of innovation while mitigating these risks, keeping customers happy, and importantly, maintaining our company culture or traditions and staying true to who we are as an organization? To answer this, I want to feature a company today that lives this firsthand and share what they've learned through this process. Classic Cinemas was founded in 1978 by the Johnson family and is now run by CEO Chris Johnson. It is the largest Illinois-based theater chain with 137 screens and 16 locations. While many Classic Cinemas locations are historic downtown theaters, much like the name might imply, each has been meticulously renovated to highlight its character and upgraded to the latest technology to create the ultimate guest experience. Having received numerous accolades for business excellence, preservation, community service, and accessibility, Classic Cinemas endeavors to be the hometown theater of choice. Now, before I introduce our guest today, I do want to take just a moment to thank today's sponsor. Today's episode of the Exploring Potential podcast is proudly presented by Cinetrain, providing the highest quality employee training, onboarding, and development solutions for cinemas across the U.S., Canada, and Latin America. Cinetrain helps cinemas attract and retain top talent, standardize onboarding and training, and increase revenue while decreasing operational costs. You can learn more at cinetrain.com. Now, I'm thrilled to welcome to the show the CEO of Classic Cinemas, Chris Johnson. Chris loves this industry and has dedicated the past 43 years to it, from being a teenage usher to becoming CEO. He takes a hands-on, respectful approach, which includes a willingness to listen, ask questions, and share his opinion. And when I say hands-on, I have to tell this story. I was visiting Chris at one of his locations a few months ago, and a customer wanted to buy a beer, but staff were tied up. And he left our meeting mid-sentence, got up, got behind the counter, and served that customer that beer. That's just the kind of guy Chris is, and exemplifies how passionate he is about his guests and staff and the experience they create at Classic Cinemas. His active participation really represents all the participants for the betterment of the cinema industry. Chris is a tireless volunteer and advocate for exhibition, whether speaking to the press, studios, government, creatives, or helping his fellow exhibitors. He serves the National Association of Theater Owners on the executive board, along with several other committees and task forces, and is also the president of NATO of Illinois. He also serves on the NATO of Wisconsin and Upper Michigan board, and last but not least, the NAC board. Chris's main objective is to ensure we embrace and promote the cinema industry while fostering sensible business practices to help it thrive. He sincerely believes in this industry and has been deservedly honored, most recently, with the 2022 Paul J. Rogers Leadership Award at the Geneva Convention, the 2022 Best Cinema Refurbishment of the Year from the ICTA, and the Eric Lomas Show East Hall of Fame Class of 2023, which Chris shares this award with Willis and Shirley. While Chris is technically CEO, I believe he has another title he prefers, which is CPE, the Chief Popcorn Eater. I'm proud to introduce my friend and just one of the best people I know, Chris Johnson. Chris, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you for having me, Brad. It's a pleasure. Looking forward to a great conversation today.
We're going to have some fun today. Like I spoke to a bit of this during the intro, but Chris, would you mind just giving just kind of a quick background and description of Classic Cinemas and your role?
Sure. So I did start when actually it was back in the late '70s, and I was helping my dad clear out the Tivoli Theater. So I actually started when we had one theater and one screen, and it was more on just physical nature of turning this sort of tired theater that we got into the business by accident. My dad was a landlord, and the theater operator left, and so his first and foremost was let's clean up the place, and so that's where I got in, and then I became an usher, but it was kind of interesting when you come into a business that you don't know anything about, and you didn't really purposely get into it, and so by that. Owning a property and having somebody leave, and you really can't do much with the theater except run a theater. We learned all of the all of the nuance of the theater hands-on, and even silly things like at the time that's when a large drink was like 12 ounces, which hard to believe, but putting ice in it, straws in it, lids on it, and how to make fresh popcorn, all these little things that actually turned out to be sort of hooks later on in life with little whether it be free refills on all sizes of popcorn and drinks. But anyways, Classic Cinema started then, kind of when downtowns were out of favor, and the malls were happening, and so we bought another downtown theater and fixed it up, and really we were in the discount business, the $1.50 movie ticket for a long while, and we had one outlying theater that we ran first run, and it was our first multiplex in December of '84. But it wasn't really until the '90s when we got into first run business, and that was after video rental had kind of taken hold, and so the sub run or the discount theaters movies were sort of getting a little close to that videotape, and so we needed to make some changes. So we did that, and then we just started acquiring more and more theaters, and candidly, we were up to 20 theaters at the end of the '90s, early 2000s, very early 2000s, and then kind of things all shifted, and we pulled back and got rid of the dead weight, and really kind of perfected our model, and then grew to what we are today. But definitely without it wasn't a straight path, and there was a lot of sort of inflection points that we addressed, and luckily we came out each time on the right in the right place. But we kind of stuck to this mission of within 2 hours of my office, which sort of on one hand limits your your opportunity, but on the other hand, it helps you concentrate and really focus. And I think that focus and ability to serve that community, even just a simple thing like we employ a full-time painter. They paint nonstop. Every year, every day, they're painting. I'm guessing most theater companies don't have a full-time painter, but we do. And part of that is just because of the proximity to our office, and just little things like that really allow us to be different. So we grew. We all sorts of different technological changes, also industry changes with there used to be competitive zones where you couldn't get a picture, and that all went away, and and then just all sorts of things. Obviously, there was the shutdown and supply shortages, but we've seemed to be able to navigate the environment and make Classic Cinemas what it is today. And I'm happy to report that actually our sales in 2023 are, the last 12 months are higher than they've been at any point during our, our 45 years in business. So
Wow.
we've come back. We're here.
Come back full strength,
Yeah.
and then some. That's awesome. And yeah, I appreciate all of that. I think there are several things about what you said that really stick out to me that, because as we talk about innovation, right? Sometimes innovation is forced upon us out of necessity, or changing the way we do things that you've had to navigate, like you said, sometimes that can be good from removing kind of the exclusivity of those zones, where you can get a picture, that's a good one. Or on the negative side, navigating COVID and, all that entailed that. But one thing that really stuck out to me about as you were talking that you really stayed, that I feel like must contribute to the success of your innovation and change, is that you stay mission focused. Like, I like that you have like kind of a hard rule of where you'll open, a hard rule of kind of how you do things. And it seems like that is a big part of successful change management, successful innovation, because you have kind of a guiding light. Would you say that's true?
Absolutely. Sometimes even in the same vein, we operate what they call traditional theaters, and there's, been this pressure to do the dine-in cinema and other things like that. And again, that is innovation, but knowing who you are and what your strengths are. I'm not a restaurateur, and so not going down that path actually was smart for us, because I would do a mediocre job. I'd give it my best,
Mm.
but I don't have a lot of faith that I would do it well. And so let other people take that route, whereas I'm going to be laser focused on, all right, I'm going to offer this, let's call it a traditional offering, but I'm going to put these hooks into that traditional offering that make it an elevated experience. I use the word affordable luxury, and I mean it from the idea that, once you decide you're going to go out of your house, where are you going to go? Well, you're going to go somewhere that makes you feel comfortable, welcome, and it provides, aside from the experience, it's there's a value there, and value is a combination of quality and price. I certainly, while I think we're affordable, the quality side of it is where I kind of live and breathe. But yeah, I mean, knowing, having a plan and what you're willing and not willing to do is very helpful. If you tried everything that came down the way, you're going to get into trouble. And even the one part that I didn't mention was the conversion to digital cinema, and there was a lot of nuance in that I can speak to that really, I think we made the conversion back in 2011, and the way that we went about it is still paying dividends to this day. And just talking about that is, instead of replacing some of the projectors and like older digital ones and film projectors, we replaced every single projector in our company, and we changed them all with the exact same projector. We were actually the first theater company in the entire country to do 4K when nobody knew what 4K was. That was back in 2011.
Wow.
And yeah, and by doing, they just rolled out this machine, and by doing that, the projectors have stood the test of time, but they didn't. The other ones end of life quite a bit ago, and the ones that we have still go. And it's kind of that Southwest plane model where, hey, we're going to fly the 737. Yeah, there's going to be slight little variations, but that way we can have a depot in our office, so we can run parts out instantly and fix things. It's a little innovation that nobody would ever really know. But if I go into the explanation of how it impacts them, they'll be like, oh yeah, okay, I see that. Like you have brighter light on the screen or whatever it might be.
Right.
But anyways, that's a lot of too much information on that. But the idea is knowing the lane you want to be in and staying in it, or if innovation presents itself, really evaluating it and seeing if you want to go down that road.
That's so well put. Your ability to focus and stay in your lane has allowed you to innovate in ways that create those efficiencies. Like I kind of talked about in the beginning, the benefits to innovation, right? The projectors are a perfect example of creating efficiencies by innovating. But I think such a powerful tip that we've started right out of the gate with that people can take away from this is staying laser focused on your mission, on, who you are when you're innovating will allow you to really maximize the efforts of that innovation. And I think, again, you mentioned your focus and quality and how important quality is to you. And so you've innovated from everything from moving from when you recognized with video rentals, moving to first run. You kind of made that change. That's a quality experience for the guests as well. To, if we go all the way back to adding ice and lids to the cups early on, to keep those guests happy. Sometimes innovation happens out of necessity. Sometimes it's an opportunity that we recognize, but either way, every industry is impacted by it. What are some other ways that Classic Cinemas has had to adapt over the years where you've innovated, and why did you do so?
Well, there's an interesting one that we were one of the first to do 3D in the marketplace, and we really leaned into it and had success. And then as we went down the road, there was a little bit of pushback because some of the product that was being released really was just kind of a money grab rather than adding to the experience. I surveyed all my guests, and I found it was amazing that 30% didn't want it whatsoever, 30% were like and possibly 30% liked it, but it really was starting to wane. And here was an innovation that I was all in on, and I realized I need to put less 3D shows up there and kind of go the other direction. And so that was kind of an interesting one because again, I'm a tech head and I was going down that road, but I listened to the guests. On the same token, another one, probably the biggest one in the last 10 years, is the recliner boom. And a lot of people are like, doesn't make any sense. Why would you cut out 2/3 or half of your seats to put in the recliners? And we looked at all the numbers and the performance, and we went ahead with it. And we found great success. But even in that space, some people are like, oh, that's a fad. And I'm like, that's not a fad, that's comfort. And comfort isn't, a fad. That's like, is air conditioning a fad? And so anyways, we went down the recliner route, and we've since found, okay, we put in the recliners. Now, how do we clean under the recliners? So then we had to innovate in how the recliners were made. And we worked with the manufacturers to have them open in mass so that you could clean them and flip them up. And then as time goes by, the heads, the headrest wears out. And how do we innovate in making them modular? So I would say we're probably on our Gen 3 or 4 on the recliners. And we put so much energy and money into those. Actually, that's one area where we probably spend more than I think any other circuit, even with little bells and whistles like putting in the power headrest. It's like $130 option that most people are like, whatever, until they sit in it and they just go, this place is extra comfortable. It's extra nice. We have heat everywhere. And yeah, so I mean, and the numbers don't lie. I mean, you cut out, like I said, the majority of your seats, but your efficiency goes way up. And then with the efficiency going up, or the occupancy, then people are planning their night to the cinema. And so they're buying tickets in advance and they're creating demand, and that demand creates more demand. So then you're doing more online ticketing, which again helps you understand how these movies are going to perform, and then you can staff appropriately. But the idea is we weren't scared. Just the idea of losing seats seemed like a horrible idea. But then, letting the numbers prove it out, letting the guest response prove it out, just, made perfect sense. So that was one where we really leaned into, and it made all the difference in the world.
And it worked out. That's a great example, and I think, like we've talked about, innovation is not without risk. And it sounds like, with the 3D situation you described so well, right? That was one where, okay, first to market is not always handsomely rewarded. Sometimes it is, and other times you start to realize like, oh, there's some other things about this. And with the recliners, you kind of turned it over in several ways, which I'm sure you did with 3D as well. Turned it over in several ways. And like you said, maybe it wasn't perfect out of the gate. But you said you're on the third or fourth generation of kind of innovating the innovation of recliners. So sometimes it's not always, just binary, which the 3D isn't necessarily either. I wouldn't, say it's either a success or failure. It just depends on, it's still an option. Right. But I think, with the recliners, for instance, there's kind of this innovation on top of the innovation that had allowed you to create an even more ideal experience the more you learned as you got in early. And then the more you learned, you kind of built off of that.
Definitely. And I think the other thing too, innovation, I look at like the iPhone. Apple did not invent the touchscreen phone. What they did was they saw competitors doing it, and they elevated the experience. And the same thing in many of the things that I do, whether it be the recliners, even one that has been very successful for me is ices, the frozen carbonated beverage, otherwise known as Slurpees at 7-Eleven. I looked at the frenzy that my kids would have going into a 7-Eleven and making their own icy. And I'm like, we're serving these ices from behind the counter, and there's not that excitement that when you go into the 7-Eleven and you're making your own. And so I'm like, hey, let's try this self-serve. And everybody told us, they said, don't do the self-serve. It's really messy and it's terrible. And, and you'll have so much waste. Well, I did it, and it's messy and there's waste, but our sales doubled. And wow. I'm like, I'll take a little mess, I'll take a little waste to double my sales. Not a problem at all. And so we really went hard. And now every one of our locations has an IC machine. Every one of them has it as a self-serve. And we've upped the number of flavors to 4 flavors. And, normally you go into a theater and there's 1 or 2. And, we have 4. In some places we have 5. And I'm going to work it up. I'm going to be known as that fun place. And it's not just little kids, mom and dad like it too. So definitely the idea of seeing other market situations. Another one, we used to go to basketball games or sporting events, and they throw T-shirts into the audience. And, people kill themselves over getting a T-shirt. And so we would have these Wednesday morning movie series during the summer. I'm like, we got to have a T-shirt to throw out. And again, you would never really think about doing that in a movie theater, but we had these packed auditoriums, and we're throwing out this T-shirt. It says, I love movies. And on the back, it was, classic cinemas, but people loved it. And so, again, observing, even our mints, we hand out mints when you leave the theater. I didn't invent handing out, mints, but it just seemed like a good thing, a way to connect with the guests. So I look at things that make me happy when I'm out, and so that's what I try to do. So a lot of my innovation, I might be first or second to the market in the theater space, but I probably sort of grabbed the concept from another place. So I think
Right.
being a good observer and listener and is really important to figuring out how to put forth a successful product.
Absolutely. Being a good observer and listener. I mean, I think about the examples you just gave from the change of where the icy machine was located to something as simple as throwing out T-shirts, right? And it's a great reminder that innovation isn't always as huge as, oh, we're going from analog projection to digital, or we're replacing all of our
Right.
seats. Sometimes there's these minor changes that we can make that make a huge difference, that if you're paying attention, you can capitalize on. Again, I would argue, I mean, I'm sure it's not as easy as, as said, but, it seems like a simple move from behind the counter. You're not even changing the product. You just move it to in front to enhance the experience of the customer. Like, it's a very simple concept. Or the idea of, I imagine you must have been at a White Sox game when that idea came to you about the
Yeah.
T-shirts. You were probably pushing over some kid to get that shirt, and
Yeah.
no, just kidding. But like, these are simple ideas that your observation and listening allowed you to capitalize on.
Well, another one that was a policy innovation was we used to give free refills on our large popcorn. And while cleaning the theaters, I would find these large popcorns with half the popcorn still left because they probably got a refill and they didn't really want to
Mm,
eat it all. So I went ahead and this was, kind of very taboo. Well, first of all, any popcorn refill, when we put those in, were very, were few and far between. But we made free refills on every size drink, popcorn, and ices. But the idea was on the popcorn, uh, why why lock them into the large popcorn if they really only want a small?
sure.
And what we found was, like my wife, she doesn't like to share popcorn with me because she has a rule: you can't eat popcorn until the movie starts. And I'm already done with my popcorn by the time the movie starts.
Well, right. You're the
So
chief popcorn eater. I mean, you're all over it.
that's right. That's right. So she might buy a small and I might buy a medium, and that's better than me selling a large. So the point of it is there was less waste, higher sales, and higher satisfaction, all because
Hmm.
I was looking and seeing these half full popcorn things, tubs, and same thing on the drinks. You know,
Yeah.
who wants to really? I mean, I don't want to say who wants to share a drink, but why not? Rather than encouraging two people to buy a large and share, let's let them get what they want. So again, it was just a small observation that led to higher returns. And the other thing that I think that is a common mistake is when you get a very a minority audience that does something bad, like self-serve candy. Somebody like takes one, or so you have more
Hmm.
waste. But that impulse sells, kind of like the ices. You sell so much more that you can afford to have a little bit of waste for those that, sort of cheat the system. And
Right.
so, you don't want to have 100 different rules just because there's a few bad apples. And so I always, one of my philosophies is eliminating the word no. How do we do that? How do we make things so that we're not saying no? Even on like loyalty points, we have you earn points, which are essentially dollars, but there's no restrictions on redeeming them. I don't care what you redeem them on because we're going to pay that money. So if I use the example of um, well, I don't want to name any names, but maybe a large electronics retailer, when they send me coupons for 10% off and I can't use them on Samsung, Apple, uh, you know, Google, and I can't use them on any of the products. And they're like, oh, you can use it
Right.
on small appliances. Well, I don't need another toaster. So my point is, Don't give out something that has so many restrictions that just makes you angry. So my point is, we should make things easy. I mean, that's really what we should do, is make things easy. Eliminate the word no. And then the other thing too is, when there is an issue, and I really think innovation um, around the guest experience is about that communication and how fast you respond. Because even if there is an
Mm-hmm.
issue, that's an opportunity. And people can't believe how quickly we respond and how quickly we take care of a situation. Sometimes we give away too much, and we probably shouldn't. But you know what? The way we look at it is, let's move on. Let's not let's take care of whatever somebody feels is wrong. And now, if they do it every time, we're going to have to cut them off. But the idea is, how how do we move on to the good and the positive, and not focus on the negative, and never elevate any sort of a disagreement.
Right. Right. I think, you clearly, I know you personally, but also the theater has such a focus on the customer, the guest experience rather. So many of your innovations have come from looking directly at that experience, from make the ices fun to, people are wasting large popcorn. Like, let's just give them what they want. Which in
Right.
that case, minimum investment, right? For a large return, because that's just a change in policy. Maybe you had to change some signage, but
Right.
like otherwise, I imagine there's very minimal investment to make that change. And
Absolutely. Even one that we did, which was our 30-minute guarantee, and we made a big deal of it. Within the first 30 minutes of the presentation, we'll give you your money back. And for any reason, we don't care. You didn't like the movie, you wanted to go home, we don't care. And we made a big deal about it, and everybody loved it. And probably most places do it, but we just hyped it up, and nobody ever takes advantage of it, because once you sit down, I mean, and when they do take advantage of it, it's a real necessity. It's like,
right,
yeah, hey, I just got a call from my babysitter and something happened,
yep,
or I got to run. I don't care why you got to go. I just want you to come back the next time. So here was another idea that we were doing anyways, but why not advertise it and let people know, hey, it's not, this isn't a commitment for life.
yeah,
You can definitely um, leave if the circumstances warrant. So again, another little, just these little teeny tweaks that you would do anyways. Why not formalize them and let the guests know that you have them in your best interest.
right. You're receiving this goodwill by just promoting, like you said, something you're doing anyway, but putting it out there
Right.
like loudly. Once again, minimal investment, I'm sure, very high returns. Which again, I go
Absolutely.
back to your point of listening and observing. Like that's how you've made those things happen, and paying attention to those pieces. And again, I go back to, you're so customer first, and it's such a key part of your culture. I want to ask you a little more about, I believe you refer to it as the classic spirit. What does that
Yeah.
mean to you? And how does that show up for your guests and employees?
Yeah. Look, everybody, I was kind of mentioning earlier that, you can watch movies at home and all that good stuff. But when you decide to come out of the house, you want to have a great time, an enjoyable time. And we need to embrace that and welcome you, with open arms. And so that spirit really is, how do we eliminate roadblocks? How do we make, you know, um, uh, just a regular experience, maybe elevated a bit? Um, I'll give an example, and I'm going off point here, but I ate once at a 3-star Michelin restaurant, and it was very expensive, and I was like, whatever. And we were leaving, and the proprietor, the namesake, said, "Hey, you want a tour of the kitchen and everything?" And I'm like, "Whoa," And he's like, "It'll be $70." And I'm like, and he's like, "I'm just kidding," and he brought us through. Um, sorry, he brought us through the kitchen and showed us everything. My whole opinion of the place went from like, wow, that was a little overpriced, and not was like this guy gets it, the detail,
Mm,
the experience. So even sort of that impromptu, like you know, giving somebody a little tour of something, letting them do something, maybe whatever it is, helping out that guest. I mean, we've had people, like, oh, I love this actor or something, and we'll have a little, we'll send over like a poster or something to them or something little. It's just kind of taking it that extra bit. But I think the biggest thing is just acknowledging their presence, and even
hmm.
things, again, taking away from competitors like Chick-fil-A, who says my pleasure instead of saying no, no problem. It's like, of course, it's our pleasure to serve you, not no problem. Why would it be a problem? In some places you go and it's like, oh, I'm glad it's not a problem. And whether, like I said, like Chick-fil-A or Culver's or some of those that have this very high level of service, or even going back to, now I'm getting off track, but like In and Out, just they keep things simple, they're efficient, they're very nice, they're communicative, and that's where we want to be. We don't want this to be a job. We want this to be good for the guest, good for the employee. And I think you have to serve your team and your guest equally in order to achieve that result. And hey, what better industry? You're talking about movies and cool things that while eating snacks. I mean, that's really it. But yeah, that
It's just
classic
fun.
spirit is really about how can we just take it up a notch in a good way and not let you fret about anything.
Right. I love that. And I think, you said you were getting off track. I think you're right on. Because I think there's this, being so service minded and this idea of this human touch, right? And I'm really interested to hear from your perspective. That's such a core part of the classic spirit, this guest experience, this human touch, the employee experience too. It's about people. And a lot of times when we talk about innovation or embracing new technologies like automations, AI, things like that, or even I'm thinking of even like online ticketing, right, where there is a human component to that. There's many benefits to that innovation. Obviously, there's also a human component to that piece that probably gets a little bit lost. So, how do you find that synergy in embracing these new ideas and new innovations, but also maintaining that human touch?
Yeah, so that's a really good point. One that we work with, regularly. Going back to the online tickets, it's pretty straightforward, but you do have people that encounter problems. So how do you have a support center that can take care of those issues, whether it be a phone call, and not hitting an automated
Ah,
call, talking
yeah.
to a live person who's local and who actually understands, the whole process and can get to you to the right place. The other thing, I'm a fan of things that can help expedite, service and take, issues out of the equation. But when it comes to that last mile, that last interaction, I want it to be face to face. I want it to be like, you know, look me in the eyes and say, hey, thank you again. And it's a pleasure serving you.
And here's a
And so I
mint.
think yeah, and here's a mint on the way. Again, the mint is, that's kind of a reflection of my philosophy of how people treat you when no money's being exchanged. So you really
Yes.
know they don't have to do this. This is, we do care about you. We do want you to come back. I mean, like when you're on an airplane and you leave and you're, bye bye, bye bye, and they used to have a skit, on that, like on Saturday Night Live. But really, if you do it with sincerity and listen, I think it makes the difference. But I don't want the experience of going to a movie to be so robotic and so and lack that human touch, because then I think you really just kind of isolate, or you eliminate the reason foregoing. And,
Hmm.
I still believe the reason to go to a theater is to kind of share this collective, uh, um, viewing with others. But it's also once you go in that room, you just want to be, you want no interruptions. So that's one of the reasons we don't do food either. Is I don't want a server walking by and or a robot walking by or whatever they do, serving up the food. I really want that full offline 2 hour vacation, and then when they come out, they're you know they're re-engaged with society, and hopefully we're there to put a smile on their face and recognize them. Not everybody comes as a couple, of family. There's definitely people that come all the time, by themselves and develop a rapport with our with our staff. So I definitely think there is a nuance, and when you address that that customer element, and Chick-fil-A again is such a great example. They really
Yes.
just, they have good food and it's a good value, but I think they really just make you feel like you're special and you're wanted and your money isn't wasted with them. And that's how I want to feel, or that's how I want to treat my guests.
And how you want to feel, right? You're creating an experience that
Yeah,
you would want yourself.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's.
There is, I would, yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
But please,
I,
please.
I know when I go to a restaurant and it's just mediocre and it's slow and the food's okay and the server doesn't feel like they're engaged, I'm like, I just wasted my money, whether
Hmm.
it's, $20 or $100. But if somebody is really attentive and great, it's like, I just feel I want to go back there. I want to enjoy that. I want to recommend it. And I just think there's such a difference, and it's very slight between, mediocre and mediocre to poor and to excellent. And
Yeah.
so that's what we try to do is we want to live in that excellent column. And if we're not, we're going to do everything we can to get you there.
And it seems like everything you've said that move us to this excellent column, right, is always keeping people in mind when you're making these changes. I mean, I feel like every single
Yeah.
example that you've given in this conversation was really people focused, and adding that human experience, that human touch, even down to your experience you had at the Michelin restaurant, right? Is
Yes.
it was took you from a mediocre experience to now you're a raving fan, right? And it was as
Yeah.
simple as that human interaction in, let me offer this guy a free tour of the kitchen. And
Yeah.
I love that they told you it was $70 first. I
Yeah.
was
I mean,
like,
he
wow,
was
that's an
messing with
upsell.
me. Yeah. But I think he sensed that that we were like, hey, whatever. And I mean, this is going way back in time, but that's even the point. I mean,
Yeah.
that was so long ago, and I remember it to this day.
Yep.
These impromptu, unexpected positives just can mean the difference, of being a customer to being a fan, a promoter, whatever you want to call it. And
Yeah.
that's what we need. It's so hard to get the messaging out there. The best thing to do is to have your guest, your fan base to evangelize your product, and that's what we want.
They do the marketing for you at that point. And get
Exactly.
that message out. And what really sticks out is going back to your experience at the restaurant. That doesn't happen without observation and listening, which has been a theme of this conversation,
Right.
right? To your point, it was like, I think he observed that we were just kind of so, and it had he not been paying attention, right, then you wouldn't have this core memory to this day. And you've taken that. I'm
Right.
sure it's influenced your business decisions. I'm sure it's influenced you at a personal level, right? Like the fact that you're telling this story years later. But that
Absolutely.
doesn't happen without listening and observing.
Yep. No, I couldn't agree more. And even some of the technology that we employ, and I think that's what we were talking. If it's kiosk, whether it's mobile, you need to look at the user experience on that and how is it making it simple, not going too far. There's always that,
Right.
hey, I want to upsell them to this other product, but at the same time, I don't want to inundate them with prompts and keystrokes and stuff to make it like, why did I go, why did I go to this other way of purchasing tickets? So I was just actually this last weekend, I was in New York City, and I was super impressed that they changed their subway from you used to have to buy a ticket or you had to have the app or whatever. But for out of town folks, that was kind of a pain in the neck. Now you can just use your Apple Pay or Google Pay and just tap and
Oh,
just go right
nice.
in. So you don't have to buy any tickets. But they didn't do a great. So they have this great innovation, but they didn't really advertise it anywhere. And so, but I'm like, how cool is that because you don't want to, it's like frequency cards. You don't want to have a wallet full of loyalty
Right.
cards, and
Right.
just like on your phone, you don't want to have like a phone filled up with these apps that you use. I mean, I go to New York maybe once or twice a year. I don't want to put the app on there. But now I'm like, I'm going to use the subway all the time. I just tap and go. So just a little, so they got it 90% right. Now they just got to advertise that this happens. But I instantly told friends, I'm like, wow, this is so cool. Because we were in Boston the day before, and you had to buy the ticket and the app and all that other stuff. So
Yeah.
again, that's where innovation shines, and I think can really make a difference. But you got to tell people about it too.
You got That's right. Because even the most simple innovations or most simple changes are worth telling people about.
Right,
Similar to your 30-minute guarantee. It's like, cool, it's just a
right.
policy, right? But let's utilize that and put it out there.
And,
I mean,
and now that I'm having this conversation, I'm thinking we have been, so the industry specification for light level is 14-foot Lamberts, and we
mhm.
strive to do 16-foot Lamberts or higher. But I just realized we don't tell anybody that. Only I tell people when when they're stuck in a corner with me and I geek out a little bit on my technology. But, like that New York subway, I need to tell people about that. So note to self, some of these little things that we do need to spread the word and go, hey, when you come to our theaters, it seems like it's brighter, it's crisper, it's nicer. And here's all the reasons why. It's light
Yeah.
level, it's screen type, it's sound. But I don't. I just go, well, I'm just giving you the best. I don't really tell you about it, but I need to communicate that. So, it's
Yeah.
the innovation plus the marketing or the communication side of it. So, note to self, I just got something from this. Thank you.
Yes. There you go. There's your next marketing campaign. I love it. It's such a
Yes,
powerful point though,
exactly.
because these are things you're doing. And I think that's something else that many people can take away from this conversation is there's probably many things that you're doing that are innovative that you don't even tell people about as a business owner, as a
Right,
director at a company, right? There's probably all
right.
these little touches or little things that you're doing that could make a profound impact if you promote them or market them.
Yes, yes,
That's
yeah. So I
interesting.
got to, yeah. You know what? Yeah. Task, yeah. Job
There's your
one.
task. We've got the next ad campaign ready for you. Oh,
Yes.
that's awesome. This is Chris. This has been such a pleasure, such a great conversation. Before we move on to our next segment together, is there anything else that you want to add on this topic of innovation, customer experience that that I haven't really asked you about or you haven't had the chance to express?
No, I think that, and again, I definitely, the sort of constant improvement, I think is, um, we all say it, and I need to do a better job of it, but just, recognizing what you're doing and evaluating what you're doing and not getting complacent. And I think that is probably the most important innovation is that listening, changing, feedback, that full circle moment. And you want to get people that are aligned with the way that you're thinking. we have this, and again, another job for me that I gotta finish is, the best first job ever as far as recruiting people. Our business is all about operations. It's all about the service. Yeah, I can do all of the technology stuff and all that, but it fails if I don't have the right front, the right person who is the face of my company. So how do I how do I get how do I recruit, train, and um, and attract the right employees so they can come and work for me during high school and college, or they come to work for me high school, college, and then make a career of it. So,
Right.
I would say that our um, that our level of innovation uh, has to be bundled in the idea of the people side and attracting, retaining, training this group, and that's very easily said, very hard to do, but you got to just keep working at it, and so that would be the one point that I think will be the differentiator, because the other stuff is semi commodity. I mean, you can see whatever movie is the hot movie. Dune 2. You can go to Dune 2 anywhere, but
Right.
I want to go to the place where they have people that really are excited to see me, and are and the operation is solid. So I'll just add that point.
Right. Yeah, who embody the classic spirit. I think that's something
Yeah,
again that
exactly.
everybody can take away from this. At a cultural level, your values, who you are at your core.
Yeah,
That's so critical because your frontline employees, in this case that we're talking about, they are the representation of your brand. They are who your customers experience
absolutely.
as classic cinemas.
Yep,
Yeah. Oh, that's
exactly.
great.
And
Well,
don't
Chris,
take
I want to
yourself too
thank you.
seriously either. That's the other thing.
Wow. Yeah, that's just good life advice, right? That's where your
Yeah,
chief
yeah,
popcorn eater
right, right.
title comes from, right? That's
Yeah,
I love that.
yeah.
I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your busy schedule to sit down with me today. This is the part of the show where I do like to just pause and give you a few moments to plug whatever is most important to you right now. If there's a company, initiative, idea, whatever that is, I do want to give you an opportunity to speak on that.
So my I want to sell the idea of being nice to each other and recognizing people that have a need, and stop and listening to them, and just try to give them a helping hand. It doesn't always have to be money. It might just be listening. It might involve something where they need help getting somewhere, or navigating whatever it might be, some financial thing or a doctor thing or something. I just think that um, the other thing is recognizing, no matter what level an employee is at, or a person is at, super successful or not successful at all, everybody is equal. And I just think that uh, taking that moment in time to recognize them makes everybody a better place. And even though we have differences, look, there's a lot more that we have in common, and so let's embrace that. So that's not a plug for anything other than humanity, but I think it's important, and it just really that I think is what I'd like to plug. So there you go.
That is important. That's so important, and I appreciate you taking the time to just call that out. I think if we all took a moment each day to recognize that humanity factor, we'd all be better off for it. So the fact that all the listeners and viewers get to hear that as a reminder today, and that's what you chose to spend your time giving us, I appreciate that. I think that's really powerful and a great gesture. That's awesome. Well, thank you very much, Chris, for your time today. Again, been an absolute pleasure. For our viewers and listeners, for more information on Classic Cinemas, you can check them out at classiccinemas.com. A couple of core takeaways I just want to recap. So number one, as far as innovation goes, it's a lot easier and a lot safer to innovate when you have a great focus on your mission, laser focus on who you are. Another piece is observing and listening. That's a critical part, especially to your guests, your employees. You're going to be inspired, whether it's catching a t-shirt at a baseball game and realizing, hey, we could toss those out at the theater, right? It's sometimes as simple as that, but it doesn't take place if you're not actively and intentionally listening and observing. So I think that's another great theme. Another one is balancing these innovations and especially technology with the human touch, or even allowing the human touch to inspire those innovations, but at minimum, keeping the human touch in mind with our innovations to ensure it doesn't get lost for both our employees and our customers, right? And the last piece I'd say that's another powerful takeaway that we kind of landed on at the end here is there are probably many things that your organization is doing that are innovative that you just do. And it's time to promote that. Let's talk about that. Let's market that. Our screens are brighter, and that's Chris's new ad campaign. So I think that's such a powerful takeaway as well. There are things that we're doing, or very simple things that we can just talk about the fact we're doing them and get that goodwill. So fantastic episode today. I really appreciate Chris joining us. I want to thank our listeners and viewers for tuning in. Don't forget to please like and subscribe if you're getting value from this content and these awesome guests like Chris Johnson. And this podcast can be found on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. It's also on YouTube. So please like, subscribe, leave us a rating, a review if you like what you're hearing, and we'll see you next episode. Thank you all.